Welcome to a new video. We are diving right into it as I have to do a little bit of housekeeping first before we start talking about the patch. Now, you guys know me. I want to give you the best information possible. I want to give you an information that you can use and it's valuable to you, especially when making a decision how to allocate your resources in game. It could be Jade, it could be stamina, whatever the resource is. I want you guys to be able to do so efficiently. Which also means that when I screw up, and I do screw up because sometimes some parts of kits got forgotten, some parts of the game got forgotten in the heat of things, it's really important that you guys call me out. And this was the case with the first playthrough. He called me out when I was talking about Eisen. I don't even know why I make that mistake, to be honest, because I know his kit fairly well. The problem is that I said he would switch into with a battlefield skill at B0 and he wouldn't gain any battlefield skill energy. And it sounds minor, but it's about accountability here, okay? So that's why I'm coming forward and telling you guys I made a mistake. And the mistake, even though it's 20 energy, battlefield skill energy, right? It's a mistake. So it doesn't change the fact that the B1 is really strong. It doesn't change this fact, but it's quite important to understand that when you switch into Eisen at B0, you have 20 battlefield skill energy, as long as you do it with a battlefield skill. Now, and this is the second part that I wanted to talk about real quick, because like, I try to give you guys a balanced view, okay? I don't try to overhype characters. I try to be like a middle ground, right? Between being over optimistic with a character, like I was at the start with Kenpachi, for example, and trying to be overly negative, like I was way earlier with Bankai Ichigo when he released, but he was the only as full assault character, prime limited character, I should say, and yeah, there wasn't much choice. But I was quite negative when it comes to him, especially because he doesn't provide much to his own kit, which makes him a little bit more tricky to play as if you have to pull out DPS. That said, sometimes maybe language barrier, may be me trying to be a little bit more balanced, I don't make my point clear enough. And I've seen this in my last video where people still had a lot of questions about the characters. Now, let me tell you this really clearly. Let's separate meta, yeah, and fun or favorite character and subjective views of a character. When it comes to meta, the priority of your character that you should pull from this rerun banner here is Eisen, then his weapon, and then Eisen again. And that's it. Second to that, Gin. Main reason why Gin is because his B0 is fantastic. You don't need his B1, you don't need his B2. His B0 is standard kit is really great. Better than Toshiro can ever provide, better than Bankai Ichigo can ever provide. Even if you have to miss out on the weapon, which you really shouldn't. If you pull for a character, you should always guarantee yourself the weapon too, by the way. And I want to make this very clear. There is no contest when it comes to weapon. We don't have anything else here. Let me show you this with Eisen. Look at the stats here, right? And if I change this to the weapon, and by the way, just real quick, this is 12% attack increase, right? And this is SR. His own weapon gives him, just this alone would be worth more than what he gives, because he's also stat boost here. So if I replace this and I go back to his stats, it's 500 attack. There is no contest when it comes to weapon. If you cannot guarantee the weapon, you shouldn't summon for any character. I want to make this very clear, because up until now, there hasn't been one weapon which was bad. So with that out of the way, B1 Eisen, then B0 Gin if you're talking about metas, and then you can argue Edo Bankai Ichigo or Toshiro. If you have Kenpachi, of course, skip Bankai Ichigo. Toshiro will provide you with much more. Another aspect that I want to mention here is people really underestimate Toshiro. people really underestimate because he wants to run with Eisen, ideally, right? Which makes it a premium issue because then you have two limited characters in one team, and if you're free to play and you're trying to go for Frenzy Feast or whatever it is that you want to go for, the best solution would have to be two free to play characters and one premium character. That would be ideal solution. But as we go along in the game, we will start using premium characters, 2, and maybe in a year's time 3 premium characters together. So Toshiro, by the time that we have another full assault spirit character, he might have fallen off, he might doesn't see much value because Eisen at B1, even in a double support setup, is fantastic. He may not reach the same numbers as in a full assault and himself, right, because he's missing the B4 and the B6 and so forth and so on. But even in that case, you don't need Toshiro. I want to make this very, very clear. He's nice to have. That's all he is. He's nice to have because even in his with his B1, he ideally wants to do 2 rotations. This only, like the B1 and the B2 are great. I'm not saying that they're not good, but the fact of the matter is that it doesn't change his core rotation, but his weapon does, right? And his core stamp does. So he's nice to have, but he's not mandatory. Really, really important. Again, I want to make this once again, very, very clear. Eisen, B0, Eisen B1, then Gin, and then the other tiers. If we are strictly speaking meta. If we are speaking about subjective value and subjectiveness, I have to be honest with you guys. For myself, B2 Eisen should have been enough. He's amazing, he's super fun at B6, but I cannot play him. I cannot even use him because he's so far beyond everybody else at B6. Not because he's flat out better than them, right? But because the investment, the B6 amplifies his damage so much and the B4 too. I don't know where to use him. I use him in Frenzy Feast when I try to score high. Let me show you. When I try to be a little bit more competitive, like this for example, I try to use them. For example, in this spirit solution here, with a double support setup, I did the first few stages with Tosh and the later stages with this double support setup here, for example. And that's how I use Eisen. It's not something that I actively use for content, for clearing content, because it trivializes content so much so that I don't get a good view about the characters in itself. So that's also why I never mention Eisen with anybody else, because frankly speaking, I don't even know his performance at B1 with a Kenpachi, for example. I don't know how good he is. I cannot tell you because I have had him for so long that the only 2 comparisons that I had was Toshiro and Banka Ichigo, and they were comparably very similar there when I did the comparison at B1 and B0. So I cannot tell you guys how good he is with the other premium characters because my Eisen is just so strong that I cannot make the comparison. And it's not that I regret B6 on him, by the way. It's just that I don't get much time to play with him, which is kind of a shame, right? That said, once again, this is how I wanted to clarify this before we go into the news breakdown, because this is really important to me. I want to provide you with useful information. And if I leave you with questions in the end, that's not my goal here. Now, similarly, when you go into the mailbox here, you will have the bonus select SSR thingy here. And this, by the way, doesn't fall off. There is no time restriction here apparently, so you can keep this for 3, 4, 5 weeks if you need to. You don't have to summon right now. It doesn't change much right now if it doesn't amplify your score in Frenzy Feast, right? And you also got maintenance rewards. Make sure to summon to claim all of this. Also make sure that the Spirit of Power Nourisher to save them up for an LEL if you want to summon for an LEL. And she is also going to be another discussion in this video, which I want to mention after talking about the GSSR. When it comes to the GSSR here, once again, I may have not made myself too clear with this. When in doubt, always take dupes for Kisuke. Because, strictly speaking, Byakuya, if you have Kenpachi, doesn't have much value. You are way better off with... Well, no, let me say it like this. I cannot pull off good numbers with Byakuya. He is falling behind every single time of the double support setup, just because of the amount of stats that they give, and the slash resistance down that he provides is not enough to offset, and his own personal damage is not enough to offset it either. So I don't have any boundaries in him. Maybe he changes at B4, maybe he changes at B6, I don't know, but I cannot judge this. I cannot give you guys advice on Byakuya or even Ikkaku, because I don't have them high up. I don't know how well they perform, and apparently nobody else does either. When it comes to characters, if you don't have Sajin, don't pull for him, because you really want his B1 for him to be really strong. He's not bad, but the question is, why should you put resources into him if you have Neliel to bring up, if you have the one rerun character that you have to bring up? Maybe you're summoning for a new character that you don't have, and that takes priority, right? And it takes 1.5 weeks roundabout, if you don't use Jade to refresh stamina, to get them all up to level 100. So it wouldn't make much sense to summon right now. I would wait. Let's see if you can get any luck. And when in doubt, always Kizuke it out, right? Especially if you're at the B4 mark. You want to go into the B3, you want to have the B2, so if you have a B1 Kisuke, go into B2. This one is amazing. Shout out to Yuzek for mentioning it, by the way. I was under the assumption that as soon as they leave, they won't be able to... this falls off, and that the uptime wasn't as good as it seemed to be, but in the actual testing that I did, it was quite good, actually. It isn't 100% uptime, depending on the bosses. There are a lot of bosses which move around, and it loses a little bit of value, but it's still fantastic for burst if you can drop it once you start bursting. Just like, there is no discussion here, by the way. I don't want to make it seem ambiguous that there is a discussion here of which dupes to get. Kisuke is on the same level as Aizen when it comes to value that he brings. The fact that we are getting stamps, for example, like Kenpachi stamps, where you have straight up crit damage in here, or Neliel stamp, if this is true, her 2-set piece is already 40% crit damage. It's crazy values. And if they are going to increase it, if they have any kind of crit damage amplifier in the future, Kisuke's value will just remain, right? And I mean, as long as we don't get new stats, crit rate, crit damage will always have value in these kind of games. So no matter what, you will never be wrong with getting him to B6. Well, maybe B6 is not that good if you need somebody else to be used. But his B6 is fantastic regardless, because 6 stack of Reishi, when he... I mean, this is 60% crit damage on top of everything else. So his dupes are really good. This one is the only one which is kinda So if you are at B4, go for the B5 for sure. With that said, Tozen has great value, right? Even especially if you don't go for Neliel. And Yoriichi might have great value, especially with her boundaries. Her boundaries are fantastic for a standard SSR, by the way. A lot of crit rate, a lot of crit damage, a lot of own buffs to increase her damage even further, which is amazing. Especially then, it's a consideration to pair her with Sajin and with Kisuke, right? But that's basically it when it comes to the characters. Now, I want to mention this real quick because this is something that has been discussed in the communities, and it's about Neliel. Regardless of how broken she looks like, up until now, Aizen was the only character, and I double checked this and triple checked this, he was the only character which kit was as it was at release, as it was leaked. And the leak happened a few days prior to his release. Now, the values, the damage values, can still vary, right? One of the biggest offender of a wrong kit was Gin and Kenpachi. Kenpachi, for example, had 75% in here, and this passive here was a crit rate increase, not an attack increase. Massive difference, right? Also, his boundaries were different. Same for Gin, his boundaries were different. This part here was a 6 technique points gain at the start of battle. No clue how that would work. He would gain a technique point every 12 seconds passively through the boundary, but it was a B2, it wasn't a B1. Additionally, his B1 was a passive that he has now, which is this part here. And it's really, really important to understand that these leagues, the values on those leagues might not be final. So regardless of what you're looking at right now with Naliel, take the values with a huge grain of salt. Huge grain of salt. Also because different to Aizen, she seems to be really shoehorned into ailment damage teams. Not that she doesn't give value, by the way. I'm not talking about value because I don't want to judge her value as she's not released yet. But Aizen, compared to her, has value everywhere. And this stems from the fact that no matter what, his kit provides something to your characters that are not spirit, right? Because the thing is, he has a mechanic which is called Ravage in here, and this gives all type resistance down, and depending on your investment in him, depending on the core stamps, weapon stamps, and so forth and so on, the amount of Ravage that you stack is different. But the main thing is that he has this. He brings this with him. Naliel, if leaks are correct, only brings all ailment resistance down. Sorry, that's the right wording there. Ailment resistance down. And she will provide ailment damage, similar to Rangiku. And her own debuff that she brings is based on her attack. So it's not like Aizen that she is going to have a lot of value just by having him in the team or having her in the team. His ultimate, for example, amplifies the damage of everybody else. So if you have an Aizen which is B1 or B0, the 15% attack that you gain through his ultimate is fantastic. Another thing that he provides that apparently Naliel doesn't have is this utility in here where you are getting 3 invincible stacks, right? And this is just something that you cannot disregard when it comes to content, especially now that in the higher stages where content can really start to hurt. You have to be careful about this kind of stuff. Take the leaks with a grain of salt, please, with a massive grain of salt. Let's wait for the release and let's see how she performs then before we judge if Aizen or not. I would always advise to go for Aizen, even if she is amazing, even if she in her B6 makes everybody else look like grass, right? Doesn't matter. Aizen has amazing value, regardless. Now, with that out of the way... Oh, no, wait. Let's keep speaking real quick about Naliel, because in the description down below, I will put my link of my Discord. I am building up the community. I invite all of you guys watching me to join me there. I have 2 communities there. Warframe community, which I do also streams from. And I also have the Bleach community there. So if you want to interact with everybody in there instead of the comments, you're welcome to do so. We have quite an engaging discussions there. You can ask anything. We have help channels and all that kind of stuff. And if anything is needed, I can still add it later on when needed, right? But I just wanted to mention my Discord channel real quick because I do events there. I do streaming events there, so you can see my schedule. And speaking of schedule, I will be online when Naliel releases, but I will also be going online on February 16th. Well, it's Central European time at 2 a.m. But I think in America it's 15th. It should be around 8 p.m. in the evening. So I will go and tackle the new content. I will go and tackle the endgame stuff there. And yeah, hopefully your guys show up like last time. It was a blast, by the way. It's super fun. I still remember it fondly. It was a great stream. Now, I yapped for 19 minutes. I don't want to keep you guys too long. Real quick breakdown here. Log in every single day. You can miss 6 days technically, 7 if we're being completely correct, but 6 days at least you can miss them without logging in, and which you shouldn't, by the way. But yeah, you can miss 6 days and still get all the rewards here. A lot of tickets, right? and a lot of weapon tickets too, so you should be able to guarantee yourself, if you have hoarded enough, the rerun characters, at least one of them. Then we have an important event here. Full Fury is here finally, and this means that you can select your main stats, okay, and your stamps. Don't forget to do this. You have 15 tries to get the stamps that you need. Don't over chase. If you get slash damage and you get 2 to 3 offensive stats on it, try re-roll it once or twice. If you have crit rate and crit damage and they get a hit, try to bring it up to level 15. If you get a hit again, try to bring it to level 20. Try, if you are lacking stamps, try to go for widths instead of depth, right? Because you really will regret having this great opportunity to get the stats that you really want. And when it comes to stats, you want the type bonus first before you get attack percentage. The main reason why you should go for attack percentage in normal cases is if you have great substats, then you don't have to chase further, right, for the time being. For the middle part, for the stamp 2, crit damage, crit rate is where it's at. If you have fantastic substat, you can try and reroll once or twice on attack percentage, but I wouldn't recommend it because this part here is, you don't get this anywhere else. And stamp 3, if you need UCR, go for UCR. If you need ailment damage, go ailment damage. Else, attack percentage is fine enough. Okay, and yeah, that's basically it for this event. And we have another event. Now we'll be doing a video about this because this seems quite challenging. This is similarly to what we already had in this kind of type of events, but it is adventure based. Basically, we clear and we get points, and with these points we buy stuff in here. Like I said, keep up. I'm going to keep up with this by doing a video about this too, so that you can get this cleared as soon as possible. Also, by the way, you have daily records, so just as a small reminder, and you have also rankings, right, where you can gain a little bit of stuff here. I'm trying to make a free-to-play friendly version for this. Not I'm trying to make, I will make a free-to-play friendly version for this, and maybe let's see where we can rank free-to-play here. That said, feel free to use your own characters if they are better, right? And I will showcase how to get all this stuff here for you guys too there. Then that's basically it, yeah. Yeah, that's it. Well, and the rest is on the 20th. All other events will drop on the 20th. Oh no, wait, I forgot to mention real quick. In this event here, in Symphony of War, they added border here and also cards. So you can do the dailies. Don't forget to do the dailies, because the cons here, getting cons is really nice too. Just as a quick reminder. And with that, I think that's all. I mentioned this part. Yes, great. So, like always, thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one. Bye bye.